What's up, guys? Welcome back, or welcome to the build. Now, we still got quite a bit to go on this. It's a bunch of little stuff, but it's a new weekend, so we get to work on it some more, and well, we'll see how much we get done. But let me show you what we got. Alrighty, so we went with the PRP seat belts to match our seats. These are, this cushioning in the shoulders here is just amazing. It has a regular latch type system, so it's easy and everybody knows how to use those. And I think it's gonna look good in here. So on our seatbelt mounting locations, these are the ones that are on the factory there, and you got one over here as well. Now I ended up getting some grade 8 7/16 bolts. Too bad it's coarse thread and I need fine thread. So I need to get some fine thread 7/16 bolts for this. And the hardware stores that are around me do not have any fine thread. They just have the coarse thread. So we are going to have to wait till my order of the fine thread bolts come in. So I guess that means I can start, I don't know, I got a lot of stuff I can still work on. So let me look around and we'll decide what we're working on this weekend. But yeah, I did get some more angle iron in here, so we'll work on mounting up the passenger seat. We'll need to basically measure this out to where that bend is in the seat, and then I'm planning on just cutting kind of a little pie out of here and then seeing if we can bend at that location just enough to fit that slight bend in the seat. And then we'll weld that up and then drill our holes for our seats and then drill the holes where they are in the seat base. Alright, so I went ahead and mounted up the back tailgate here as well, and now I have to take it back apart. I forgot that there's supposed to be shims behind here. I guess, well, some require shims. I don't know if everybody's does, but mine had shims behind it in order to space it out a little bit more because it doesn't quite close all the way. So I have to take that back off, put the shims behind it, and then I can close this and not have to worry about our corners and scraping and everything. Well, another storm. Seems like every weekend I want to work on this. This seems to happen. Alright, I got the tailgate off. You're gonna have to excuse me, the image probably isn't too good because we are out here in the evenings because it is just too hot during the day. So these are our little spacer plates that I made. So these will basically go right on the inside of those hinges. So these will space out the bottom just enough so that this will actually shut all the way. Before we could get it to start to shut, but we were still off up here because the bottom was contacting quite a bit for the top. With these spacers, we should have everything contact about the same time. So I got 2 of these made up. So now I just got to figure out how I'm going to lift the tailgate back up there and slide everything back on, line everything, and tighten everything back down. Alright, so we're starting early this morning to try to beat the heat of the day before it gets too hot in the shop. Alright, well, I got the tailgate back on now with the spacer. So actually what I should have done before I painted was go ahead and try to bend these in a little bit. This little angle here does not like this kind of curved corner. On mine, it just got too close, and without the spacer it was contacting the other paint, and I don't want paint rubbing on the other paint because it'll rub through. I just have a little patch thing right here right now just to keep it from bumping it. Eventually I will go ahead and put a full strip all the way up, and then also I will find a pretty good thick seal to put down on the bottom here. You can see that gap at the bottom a little bit, so I will need to find a good seal to put on there, and then I'll put the just little thin strip seal along the inside of that. Well, one more thing down. Also last night I went ahead and drilled out the mounts, got them attached to the passenger seat here. Now remember, we had that little angle at the front here, so those actually hold the seat up off the base but allow this tab to kind of come forward and down a little bit more. That keeps the seat a lot more level, and it actually matches the driver's seat now with the angle. I got both sides mounted. Now what I need to do is actually mark out where these are going to sit on top of the base. Once I mark this base here, we're going to take the seat back out, take the mounts off. We'll go ahead and drill the holes on the mounts to mount to the base. Then once we have those holes drilled, we'll put them down where they sit on the base and drill through the base, and then we'll plate the back side of that base with some steel as well to give it a little bit more strength so that those bolts don't pull out. So it's going to be a kind of a little process to get this all marked up to where we want the seat to sit in here. That way also we don't get any like twisting of these base mounts and then have the seat not actually fit in there as well as it should. That's my next step. All right, so the day's starting to heat up and I could really use a breeze in the shop, but what's a little ridiculous is, I don't know if you can see, let me zoom in. That tree up there is whipping around pretty good. Even the tree on the neighbor's property over there is whipping around pretty good. And even our tree on the other side of the property is whipping around pretty good. But you can see there's like no wind around the shop here. It's like I'm sitting in a pocket with no wind. All right, well there we have our mounts laying on there. I went ahead and drilled the holes, and these are just pushed in to hold it in place to make sure everything was lining up right, and it is. So next I'll be creating the back plates that go on here, and that'll help sandwich that fiberglass. That way it makes it a little stronger. And there we have our little plates for the back. Now that'll keep those bolts a little bit more secure in the holes without ripping out of that fiberglass. I'm also just finishing up painting these parts of that seat mount. Once these are dry, I'll go ahead and bolt these in place and mount the seat to the seat base. The heat in that shop is just dangerous. It is worse than a sauna in there, and I really don't want to get overheated and possibly hurt myself. So I've been kind of taking it slow and having to stop and cool back down. All right, so something I found out the hard way now, our intercooler tube here that comes from our intercooler into the engine is sticking a little too far out this way, and I can't get any type of, basically the 4-inch pipe that we need to go to our intake. We're gonna have to modify our intake a little bit. We're gonna have to pie cut it, and it'll angle it back this way a little bit more. But that still makes this little squeeze here a little too tight. So I guess I'm gonna get to cutting this and trying to mock up something again. Shouldn't be too bad. It looks like basically maybe we have it a little too long in here. So if we go ahead and cut out a section there, that'll move it over. It'll pull this back a little bit, but I do have quite a bit of play. We do have a little issue also with our dipstick tube. We'll see if I can get this to bend this way a little bit. And then if I can, I'll go ahead and try to bend it this way so it actually hides over here. It's easy to check. But I may end up having to get a bender because the tubing bender I have doesn't do that quite that large. You can see a little bit better there how tight that is. That just doesn't, like if we have a 90-degree 4-inch there, it just doesn't quite fit in there. So hopefully it will here after I modify that tube. I also ordered a stainless steel bung for our MAF sensor. It fits a 4-inch diameter tube, so this fits this perfectly. That'll allow us to put that in wherever we do it. But this is from, if you're interested, it is from MRP. It is stainless, so I will not have to necessarily paint this or powder coat it if I do not want. And I've already test fit this and it does fit. So we'll go ahead and take the MAF sensor out of there and put it on this whenever we get the tubing done for our intake there. Alright, so I actually did have a little help yesterday, and they're not too keen on being on camera too much, so I didn't shoot a whole lot, but let me show you what we got done on here now. As you can see, our passenger seat is now in place and our seat belts are bolted in. I still have the plastic on there just to protect it while I do everything else. We went ahead and ran our little coolant line that goes from the engine block down there up. We ran it forward so that would clear most of the hot part of the turbo and everything. It's going to run over here, and then it'll run into one of these ports over here for our heater core. I went ahead and ran our other portion here from our heater core. It goes down and down into, can't see it, can't, oh, don't drop that. It runs way down there into our lower radiator tubing. So that's our coolant loop for our heater core. Now we do have the other fitting down there. That is our fitting that goes up to our coolant reservoir tank up here. Now I still don't know if I'm going to custom build one of these or just put the stock one back in place. I just know that it's gonna get a little tied up in here if I use the stock one. The stock one actually sticks out quite a bit over here, and then the one that I have actually has the port sticking straight out instead of down like some of the newer ones. So either I may have to order a newer one and just have the port pointing down to go to the other port down there, or I may build one that actually sinks it all the way up into here and then has a port down there. Our little air filter box here is just sat in place, so I got to be careful with that I don't knock it off. But now that we actually modified up, oh yeah, we also got our little turbo intercooler pipe there modified up. It actually tucks up in there nice. Now as you can see now, I'm able to make that 90, and we'll be able to do another 90 into that intake for our turbo. Now I just got to figure out where my darn dipstick tube's gonna go. I have no idea why this thing is so long. Haven't yet figured out if I want to modify up our intake horn there for our turbo. It would be nice if it actually came out a little bit this way more, not kind of pointing backward. I did go ahead and order some couplers for these. It's going to be same as these here, just 4-inch. So we'll have a 4-inch, 4-inch, everything will be 4-inch into the turbo. I did actually order a straight one, a 45, and a 90, just to have a variety on how we want to connect all this up in here. I have 2 of these 90 4-inch still, so we can go ahead and add in sections between it or however we want to do it. So for the meantime, I have this little Edge CTS2 to monitor the engine and everything. I created this little aluminum plate for the dash, cut out the back, actually took the little ball mount thing out the back and just used that as kind of a clamp. I went ahead and drilled and cut out the section for our little plugs there. Still need to drill the holes in the corners to mount this to the dash, but that's in place and it's pretty steady, so happy with that. I am still planning on putting in our fuel level gauge and our voltmeter gauge, and then probably something else as well, but the Edge here does monitor quite a bit, temperatures, speed, and everything, so it'll actually display a lot for me. Alright, so I'm on my phone underneath here because it actually has a light but also has a little bit wider angle view, so I could show y'all. I got those wires ran underneath here. Still need to clip the little wire ties. Forgot about that. But those run up over there. I may change on where they run, but right now them kind of hanging down a little bit there is not a bad thing because eventually we will have our drive shaft going through there. So eventually I'll either need to tuck them up closer to the engine or leave them down like this and do a mount on the side so it kind of keeps them up out of the way. We do have our ground from the engine to the post on the side over there. We have our starter cable here connected, and it is sheathed for the heat and stuff that might come off because it does get a little bit closer to that manifold up there. Also on our radiator here, I do need to go ahead and get a fitting for this that has a little hose barb end so I can actually run it to the reservoir tank up here. That will be our overflow from the radiator up to our tank, and then we will have an overflow on our tank that runs down basically to the ground. Hopefully nothing runs out of there. That means we have a good system going. Now for our little aftermarket coolant reservoir tank, I went ahead and cut a piece of this 6-inch stainless tubing, and then I cut a couple of end caps for it. I do have a reservoir cap coming in that'll allow me to basically just weld it to the top here. Now also on there we'll have our little stainless fitting that'll go to our lower radiator tubing. Then we'll have a little barb here near the top that'll go to our overflow on the radiator, that little so that'll go to that little barb that I was talking about on the radiator that we need to get a fitting for also. Once we have that done, I should be able to go ahead and fill up the coolant system, get that all purged of air, and get it ready for our first drive. Well, there is a bunch of little things going on with this now. Now I'm still hoping, but I seriously doubt it, to get this thing first drive on Labor Day. Yeah, that's just around the corner. I'm pushing and pushing to get things done on this, but we don't want to push too fast or we may mess up something. So trying to do it quick, but trying to do it right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Now I'm sure I got done some other little things that I forgot to show, like connecting some wires or bolting in the tailgate, or I don't know. I can't think of anything else, or I would have shown y'all. But I do have some friends and family coming in this week, so I'm going to try to get this episode out a little early this week. Now I am really hoping to get this back to a 1 episode per week kind of thing, but right now it is a bunch of little things, and I'd rather not get out like 4 or 5 episodes that just says here's another bunch of little things, and I'd rather get out just a couple of episodes of little things with a first drive. So I hope y'all still like this episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see y'all next time.